And I know Jimmy was getting money from Peter Allard,
which was a DNC, Hillary Clinton, FBI, CIA op, just like January 6th was.
Hey everyone, it's David, producer for The Benjamin Dixon Show and Like It or Not. Wanted to give you an update because there is actually some confirmations that have been made about Jimmy Dore and his backing. So yesterday, you may have seen the clip that went around, and we made a video about it, a very brief 10-second clip where Jimmy said the reason people should be standing up and defending Donald Trump's, quote, political prosecution is because next they're going to come for everybody, them meaning the government. And he referenced the First They Came For poem, which references in different orders. First they came for the socialists, the trade unionists, the Jews, etc. Well, that clip was just a soundbite, but it was part of an hour-long interview that Jimmy Dore did with Niko House, where they discussed a whole range of things. It was mostly focused on Jimmy's interview with Cornel West, where he was bluntly disrespectful. In this interview, he actually tried to claim credit for maybe changing Dr. West's mind, because apparently Niko interviewed Dr. West and was sounding more along their conspiratorial thinking. After that interview was making the rounds yesterday, another clip came out of Graham Elwood in which he acknowledges that Jimmy has taken payment in order to push certain issues and positions. So let's take it step by step. We'll show certain parts of the interview that he did with Niko House, and then we'll look at the comment about the financial backing. All right, so there's a lot in this interview, but we're going to focus on a certain portion where he makes the most outlandish claims and statements. So at 39:40, he outright refers to January 6th as a CIA, FBI psyop.
What else is depressing to me is Cornel West's incuriousness and his lack of interest in seeing the bigger picture. So I would like to see him push back against the Russiagate narrative, which was a DNC, Hillary Clinton, FBI, CIA op, just like January 6th was.
Yeah,
you know, he came on and repeated FBI talking points on my show, when failing to see the connection, how the establishment, not only in America but worldwide, there's a global cabal of capitalists that run things.
So right away we see him basically joining the Tucker Carlsons of the world. He later says he's not a Trump supporter, but he's clearly catering to the Trump and MAGA base, to the deep state crowd. He's definitely pushing those types of conspiracy theories that have already been debunked. So not long after that, at about 41:28, he starts going in further on January 6th, painting it as a false flag, saying the CIA and FBI were behind it all, that they instigated it, and that their long-term game plan was basically to create January 6th so that they could criminalize Donald Trump and go after Donald Trump. Makes absolutely no sense, despite the fact that it's already been debunked. But it makes absolutely no sense when the CIA and FBI didn't encourage Trump to make the statements he did, to, in the background, organize with the Proud Boys and direct his circle to do all that they did in coordination with the various groups, which obviously the MAGA crowd is not going to believe, even when they watch the trial and see all the evidence. But we're not going to break down all of the January 6th details and nuance here. So here's what he said about January 6th.
That January 6th stuff is such garbage. This idea that they were trying to overthrow the government. You mean a bunch of Second Amendment gun nuts showed up to overthrow the government and they forgot to bring their guns? Oh, I knew I forgot something. I had water, mittens, scarves, but I forgot the guns. Of course, they were just pissed off protesters who thought that the government, that someone stole their election, just like the other half of the country thought that Russia had stolen their election for 4 years, and nobody called them anti-American insurrectionists. But half of those people got pushed in by FBI plants in the crowd. We know this. They Niko, you know they had twice as much security for a forced to vote rally than they had for those people, and they knew they were coming for months and months. This is exactly what the FBI and CIA intelligence community does. They create this so they can now criminalize Trump and his political movement. That was the whole point of them doing January 6th like this, and now they're doing it to Donald Trump. The Cornel West himself said the reason why he called Trump a fascist and not Biden is because Trump tries to criminalize his political opponents. Now, he said that a few years ago before they've been doing this to Donald Trump. And now that they're doing this to Donald Trump, it would be nice to see him make the same connection. Now, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, never voted for Donald Trump, but I can see what they're doing. What they're doing to Donald Trump, they would do to Cornel West, they would do to Bernie Sanders. And I tried to explain to him.
They tried to do it to Bernie.
So right there, not only did he push conspiracy theories about January 6th, but he also is really trying hard to claim that Trump's legal woes are all politically motivated, skipping over the fact that a grand jury indicted Trump. This wasn't just a prosecutor looking over a case brought to them and deciding, yes, we're going to go after him with charges. A grand jury, regular citizens, indicted Donald Trump. Not only that, the witnesses and the evidence has come from Trump circles, Trump affiliates. Conveniently, they forget to bring any of this up. Now, the one other portion that I'm going to point to in this interview is that he just completely attacks Cornel West again.
He's resistant. On my show, at least, he couldn't step away from the Democratic Party's message for campaigning. And that's a loser. And it broke my heart to see him call me a Trumper when I was just repeating our RBN black activist talking points. He called me a Trumper for it. That's despicable. It shows that he's not serious about running. And him hiring Peter Dow also shows he's not serious about running. I would like Cornel West to get serious about running so I could get more enthusiastically behind his campaign. But he's wrecking it. He's shitting the bed left and right, and he doesn't care. And he's out again. He's calling people I'm an ally, and he's smearing me in the same way he was smeared. That's pathetic.
Just a couple of real quick things on this. First of all, it's fair to criticize the Democratic Party. Their messaging sucks. They are terrible at messaging. Cornel West is not pushing messaging in the vein of the Democratic Party. If you watched his interview with Cornel West, Dr. West was very, very strongly insisting on the need to focus on the threat of white supremacy and the history of it, of male supremacy and the history of it, and the targeting and bigotry against the LGBTQIA community, the trans community specifically. He would not back down from the social issues. That is not Democratic talking points. Democrats tiptoe around it. They do the bare minimum just to acknowledge it and try to push, but they really don't focus in on it. And Biden himself is pro-cop. Dr. West is right that Biden's not a fascist. He also went after Peter Dow. I'm not going to get into all of that here. I'll just say that even Bree Joy has defended the selecting of Peter Dow on Twitter. And while Dore may not support Trump yet, we'll see if that switch comes, in the not too distant future. But as of right now, he claims he doesn't support Trump. He's just defending the prosecution. Fine. He's definitely catering to the Trump crowd. Has been for a while in coded ways and, making certain switches. Now he's just going full throttle. The other thing I wanted to show was the clip that surfaced about his backing. Graham Elwood, who used to be on TYT with Jimmy Dore, on The Aggressive Progressive, and on the Jimmy Dore Show. I don't think he appears anymore. I could be wrong. He was streaming and had this to say.
It's cost me money disagreeing with Jimmy. If I just all I cared about was money, I'd agree with him. But I'm not going to do that. I am only going to talk about what I believe in. And if you don't believe me or you don't like me, whatever, I'm saying what I believe in. No one's in my ear. Okay? And I know Jimmy was getting money from Peter Allard, who is a billionaire that was paying some indie, he's supposedly a progressive. He was paying Jimmy, what I was told was $5,000 a month. And then I heard this Peter Allard guy during the whole vaccine thing in 2021 told at several shows that he was paying, hey, I need you to push this anti-vaccine stuff. And several of the shows said, I don't want your money more, we're done. And Jimmy kept taking his money. That's my understanding. So there's a lot of stuff that's suspect here.
So in that clip, you hear Graham mention Peter Allard, and that Allard was offering influencers and commentators money to push COVID conspiracy theories and messaging against the vaccine. Now, mind you, $5,000 is not a lot of money. It's money, not big money. But keep in mind that Jimmy blew up over the pandemic. His platform and his audience grew during the pandemic. So right around this time. So now he's making significantly more. 5,000 would be just a few chips. It wasn't only Graham that said this. During a live show of the Vanguard podcast, Jordan Chariton of Status Quo, previously of TYT, actually sent a comment to the Vanguard hosts confirming that Jimmy Dore introduced him to Allard, and Allard was paying not only Dore, but others $5,000 a month to push this anti-vaccine messaging. So it doesn't speak to Dore's current backing, but the consistency in which he has gone down this path after getting some funding and made more and more aggressive tone changes and messaging changes to the right and in the conspiratorial vein. There really should be little doubt that he's receiving funding. Sure, he gets his subscribers and members, but the big dollars are coming from elsewhere. It was long assumed that he had backers. We didn't have hard evidence of it. Now we have evidence that at least at one point he was receiving money from Allard. If you think he started with that and then just went back to membership funds, there's a lot of money in this realm to be made if you're willing to do it. So I just wanted to bring these developments up. Let us know what you think in the chat, and we'll be back with more content soon.